Blackjack 3, The Final Slaughter, was a box office disaster. Many even called it a dud. Still more referred to it as a large pile of stinking shit. Blackjack was laid to rest with all of the other failed cinematic movie monsters, long before his fans thought his time had come. It would take a miracle for Blackjack to rise from his dumpster grave. That miracle happened nearly 20 years after Blackjack 3's dismal release. The Blackjack saga got one of the greatest twists in not only the history of film, but in the history of the entire world. Blackjack Smith was in fact a real person. In 2008, a police officer from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, came forward claiming he had finally solved a case he had been working on since the 1950s. It would force him to leave his career, possibly his sanity, behind him. The case that he had solved was that of a number of disappeared persons, teens that had gone missing in the woods around Cape Breton and had actually spread across the entire country. No connections were ever made other than rumors that they were all killed by a mysterious figure. Few witnesses ever saw the figure, but their stories contained certain facts that remained consistent. One was that the figure wore black. The other was that he wore a mask that would someday be made famous on the silver screen. Most took the stories as just rumor or delusions of drug-crazed minds. Teens loved their drugs, so everyone accepted that. The missing teens were simply lost to time. Remember, this was the 1960s, and people basically didn't care about teenagers. They were causing all kinds of problems for people, so the less of them, the better. One person, however, did not accept this answer and made it a personal quest to solve these teens' disappearance, their murders, and bring the fiend who committed them to justice. Detective Jake Completon, fresh off the beat, was giving the first case in 1958, but quickly was told to abandon it when everybody realized they didn't actually care who had committed the murder. The missing teens were troublemakers, and good for them to either leave into a life of obscurity or die in a lonely, shallow grave. Completon was able to forget that first case, but as the body count, or lack thereof, began to pile up, he could no longer ignore it. He would work on the case for the next 4 decades, and he came to his own conclusion. Now, at age 106, Completon is here in the studio, ready to tell us about his amazing discovery. Welcome to you, Mr. Completon. Hello, Mr. Completon.
Hello. Hello.
What jumped out at you as a clue or something vital about this case? What was the important thing that jumped out at you?
We didn't jump then. It wasn't regulation. What would happen was we would instead climb to the highest point, and we had to then climb back down. No jumping was allowed. This was a different time, if you recall. This was a different time. My grandson, his name is William. Do you know him? You might know him. He's dead, but he jumped from time to time.
And when you finally close the case, how did you feel? How did you feel about closing the case? Yes?
My hands work to close things, and it feels like a good sandwich. Have you ever had a sandwich? I don't know if you've had a sandwich. I've had a I've had a sandwich that felt like it was satisfying.
You're retired now. Are you working on any other cases? Other cases?
Yes, the woman next door to me I'm in the home. She was murdered and I'm on the case. Sad, really. She was a good woman. They say it was just time, but I don't think so. I think it was those Petrucco boys. Do you know the Petrucco? You might know the Petrucco boys. They would jump from time to time.
Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Completon.
Hello.
Hello.
Who are you?
Originally, the story was to become a standalone film. The biography of a real madman by Blackjack's original studio. But in a bidding war, the rights went to Blood Splatter Films. Blood Splattered had also obtained the rights not just to the original 2 films, but also to The Final Slaughter. Their goal was twofold. One was to make the biographical, more true-to-life story of Blackjack and the man behind the mask. The other was to somehow make Part 3 work with Parts 1 and 2. When asked their reasoning behind this choice, they stated, "The story of Blackjack is our story. It is interpretable. 3 is different from 1 or 2, but that's okay. It's interpretation. No better, no worse. Also, we'd really like to make a box set, and it would really be easier if they all fit together in the box set. Marketing-wise, we spent a lot of money on this, like a lot. The results of their work was a rebirth of the franchise in 2009, Blackjack 4, The Homecoming.